I want to start this video off by saying thank you to everyone that showed their support from the last video. My latest video got me over 1,000 subscribers and did super well considering the size of my channel. So again, thank you so much for subscribing and showing support. In this video, I'll be breaking down the character arc of Dan, explaining to you why he's one of the most compelling characters in Fear and Hunger. To get a few things out of the way, this video will contain some pretty heavy spoilers, so if you want to play this game for yourself, the game is on sale on Steam right now. You should totally check it out. Also, I'll be focusing on ending B for this video. Although it might not be canon, I personally believe it completes the character's story, especially Dan's story. Lastly, this video will be separated into 3 short parts: Dan's backstory, his storyline, and finally, my personal interpretations. I'm going to narrate the entirety of Dan's backstory for those interested. If you already know about this or just want a quick recap, you can totally skip this section. Or if you just don't want to listen to me talk about this, I get it, bro. Since you were a toddler, you have been traveling around Europa with your parents. Your parents are devout followers of the older god of fertility and creation, Sylvian. Because of the nature of Sylvian's cult, in each new town you'd witness your parents putting on their rabbit masks and heading to the meadows naked with all the other cult members. You hated this life. Your parents would be more concerned on the matters of religion than you. To make it worse, they even try to pass on the healing gift of Sylvian to you. From very early on, you learned that no gift comes without a price. With Sylvian's gift of healing, you saw how the mental state of your parents deteriorated over time. They spent longer and longer times in the meadows, until one day, they never returned. You were 13 years of age and alone in the kingdom of Rondon. You had to do something for a living. A butler of a local aristocrat took you under his wing as an apprentice. You started working for Baron Einher von Dutch. You learned good manners, grew to appreciate fine arts, and other perks that high-class living brought along. Over time, you got better acquainted with the daughter of the house. Her name was Elise. She would be endlessly amused by your childhood stories and all the madness your past cult life brought with it. The Baron himself learned of your upbringing as well, and was fascinated by Sylvian and her healing properties. The Baron used to work as a doctor, and he had very different concepts for healing and mending wounds. He taught you about the modern medical practices in exchange for your knowledge on the older god Sylvian. To be honest, his thirst for otherworldly knowledge felt a little bit obsessive even. He taught you cannot cure any symptom without giving something in return. To heal, something of equal value must be lost. The most important thing learned is that you trade your life, yourself, in the practice of medicine. That is the price to save others. As time went on, you became an item with Elise. Everything fell into place very naturally, and even the Baron gave you his blessing, despite your background being anything but noble. For the first time in your life, everything felt just right, but this wouldn't last for long, as something terrible had been brewing in the Eastern Europa for a good while. The conflict between the Eastern Union and the Bremen Empire had dragged many neighboring countries to take part in the hostilities, and the Kingdom of Rondon was no exception. The kingdom was enlisting all able-bodied men to the front lines. You had no choice but to pack your bags and join the Great War. Because of your knowledge in medicine, you're given an option: to join the army as a medic, or pick up a gun and join as an infantry trooper. The war was cruel and inhumane. You had to take part in countless things better left unspoken. The only thing that kept you going was the thought of your new family waiting for you back at home. Every night you'd read letters from home and fall asleep to a photograph of Elise. One day the letters ended. It was natural for letters to get lost in all the chaos, but you couldn't help your ominous feelings. So when the Kingdom of Rondon finally withdrew from the war, you rushed straight back home as fast as possible. The manor of Von Dutch was lifeless and dark on that gloomy day. You stormed through the countless rooms, but couldn't find a soul in sight. That was until you found the basement door partly open. In the darkness below, you could only tell apart the silhouette of a person who had died standing in the middle of a swirling ritual circle. The person was Einher von Dutch himself. He had died on the spot from what seemed like self-inflicted wounds and cuts. Each corner of the basement had sacrificial gifts to an old god unknown to you. Your heart sank as you recognized just who was the main sacrifice of this maddening rite. You tried to save Elise with any means necessary. You tried to exchange vital parts of yourself for the life of her, but that didn't work. You tried unspeakable methods for days, but it was all in vain. She was too far gone. A cult had completely swallowed the Baron while you were away, and you could only guess as to what he tried to accomplish with this unholy ritual. Upon searching through Baron's documents, you noticed a certain place mentioned frequently time and time again, a town called Privil, in the country of Bohemia. The place had something to do with the belief of the Baron, and maybe there you'd find at least some sense to this madness. It wouldn't bring back your old life, but frankly, you had nothing else going for you anymore. Only this small clue on what took everything away from you. Answers. That was enough of a reason to get you back on the road. We learned that from the very beginning, Dan's life was full of misfortune. His parents neglected him, and Dan had to witness their minds deteriorate into complete madness. The Baron, who actually raised and molded him into the man he is today, introduced him to high-class living in modern medicine. Dan grew to fall in love with Elise, the daughter of the house, while Baron grew obsessed with learning about the older gods. The Great War starts and Dan is forced to join as a medic, experiencing what we can only assume to be traumatic, horrifying things. When he returns home from the war, he finds both the Baron and Elise killed and sacrificed to an unknown older god. In a last resort method to redeem his loved one, he travels to Privil to seek answers about this mysterious cult and why they took the last thing he loved away from him. This backstory also explains Dan's appearance as well. He's missing his eye, which he used to try to save Elise, while his gray hair is caused from the trauma experienced in the war. He also wears fine clothes and presents himself more as a gentleman compared to the other male characters. Dan has 5 unique encounters. The first one is with Osa, where he reveals to Dan that the unnamed god he's been looking for is known as the Sulphur God. Dan is then confused when Osa tells him that the god is ancient and not much is known about him. We'll get back to this later. The second unique encounter is with Needles and Stitches. After killing them and using the medical diagnosis skill, Dan discovers that they are both Baron and Elise respectively. Their bodies have been distorted and disfigured due to mutilation, but Dan is still able to recognize them, adding way more questions to the table, mind you. The third encounter is probably what most people know. Dan turns into Pocket Cat. It turns out that Pocket Cat offers him a deal to answer his questions if Dan allows him to use his body as a host. We see this when he transforms into his moon-scorched form. The fourth unique encounter is with Perkele, or however you pronounce it, at the top of the moon tower. He reveals that one must witness death, deal death, and finally experience death to seek salvation through the Sulphur God. After this process, one will be, quote, born again, becoming a servant of the god. But what does this all mean? The final encounter is his ending slide on the 4th day. We learn that Dan, although given the answers he's looking for, can't comprehend what's going on in the greater scheme of things, and can't put the pieces together. The player is able to put it together, but Dan is unable to. The slide ends with Pocket Cat taunting him to take his deal. So, how do we wrap our heads around this? This is the part of the video where I'm going to insert my own opinions on the character, and where I'm probably going to upset a lot of you. But just a reminder that these are my opinions and speculations and ideas, but I will give you my reasoning and thought process towards this. This is where I find Dan to be the most compelling character in Fear and Hunger. This is the part of the video I hope you were looking forward to, because this is exactly why I wanted to make this video in the first place. As a player, we're given the answers. Somehow, some way, Baron gained knowledge of the Sulphur God. Obsessed, he went all the way, just like the madman in the apartments, and partook in the sacrificial ritual. Using what we learned from the Perkele encounter, the Baron witnessed death, dealt death, and then died to become truly born. So he witnessed death, he killed Elise, and then unlived himself. This explains why we see Elise and Baron alive in Privil as Needles and Stitches, and we can assume that they are servants of the Sulphur God, just like Perkele and Pocket Cat, even though Pocket Cat is technically a servant of Rare, but whatever. The answers are given to us, but Dan cannot figure it out for himself, and we can only guess what happens after the events of Termina. Throughout his entire life, it seems that Pocket Cat, and life in general, has been taunting and mocking him for every step of misfortune he took. His parents neglecting him, witnessing occult activities, becoming an orphan living on the streets, going off to war, seeing horrific traumatizing things, coming back to see your loved ones sacrificed, ended up in a sadistic festival. All of these are misfortune, to say the least. And misfortune has been following Dan his entire life. I wouldn't be surprised if Pocket Cat has taunted him before this. What separates Dan from the other characters, especially with ending B, is that they find the answers they're looking for the most part, and move on to better themselves. Marco opens up a gym, Abella becomes a scientist, and Levi becomes a drifter. But with Dan, we solve nothing. His only hope was to find answers in Preeville, and he didn't. In any other form of media, with a character with this much depth, we'd see him succeed, but the game director has the balls to say nope and give Dan the worst ending imaginable. He's the perfect example of a tragic character. His journey starts with depression, loneliness, and hopelessness, and he leaves Preeville only more depressed, more lonely, and more hopeless. Dan is a character barely hanging on to life, and by the end, contemplates giving up himself to Pocket Cat. This is what I find so interesting about Dan. His character resonates with such a realistic approach to life. Unfortunate, but realistic. Sometimes there is no happy ending. Life is full of misfortune, and people don't always find the answers that they're looking for. Although this is how real life is, people don't naturally find themselves drawn to a character arc like this. We like to see the good guy succeed, for example. But with Dan, we don't get that. If you're watching this far into the video, I thank you. Please consider liking and subscribing. Also, feel free to give me any new video suggestions. I'll gratefully read them and consider them. Thankfully, I won't end this video on a dark note. I want to say thank you again to everyone that showed their support in the last video, and I encourage everyone to follow me on Twitter where I am most active. Life has been very crazy, which is why this video took so long to get out. But hey, it's here now, and I'm slowly getting better at this. So that's all. Thank you so much. Have a good day, and I will see you next time.